We are a small tech e-commerce platform, not a website builder. So Foxy does the cart, the checkout related things like obviously receipt, drop-in customer portal, integrates with over 100 different payment methods. We do recurring billing. So really it's a platform to add e-commerce or website you're already using without needing to rebuild your site.
Hello, everyone. Today, my podcast guest is Brett from Foxy. Brett, thank you for joining. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company.
Hi, my name is Brett. I co-founded Foxy.io, FoxyCart, 18 years ago. We are a
Wow.
small tech e-commerce platform. Unlike most, we are not a website builder. So Foxy does the cart, the checkout related things like obviously receipt, drop-in customer portal, integrates with over 100 different payment methods, tax integration, shipping. We do recurring billing. So really it's a platform to add e-commerce to whatever platforms or website you're already using without needing to rebuild your site, have a whole extra sort of site, manage things. Works really well for the types of people who might hear that and think, oh, that's exactly what I need. Um,
Mhm.
but for folks who might just say, I just want to choose a template, upload my products, and be off to the races, Shopify is fantastic. So um, and like I said, we're small tech. We're a team of a dozen spread around the world. We like what we do. We have great users, and we'd be happy to chat if that sounds like, you need it for anybody listening.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for the intro, Brett. Before we get into the a lot of the things you just said here, a little bit of background on yourself. So you said 18 years. You have employees all over the world. So where are you from originally? And like you said, you started FoxyCard 18 years ago. Where are you guys based?
Yeah, so Foxy, we have a US entity and a Canadian entity. I'm from San Diego originally, and
Nice.
now I'm in Canada. I'm an immigrant. I never expected to be an immigrant. I expected to stay in San Diego because it's beautiful, but it is also beautiful in Canada.
I never heard of this, a move from San Diego to Canada. It's a whole different climate here. What prop that move, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, so Foxy's fully remote. So for a number of years when my kids were younger, we full-time RV'd around the continent. So I had
Oh,
like two or three hot spots, and outside of really the middle of Alaska, there's internet all over the continent. So we had fun doing that, and we sort of fell in love with BC, and that's where we are.
I love it, man. That's awesome. So when you were RVing around the country, what was the best place to get a good Wi-Fi signal?
Surprisingly, there was solid. I mean, this was a while ago, and there was
Yeah,
4G
yeah.
everywhere. So I'm assuming it's only gotten better. But it was, it's nice. Some days are, I'm working outside of a lake, and some days I'm holed up in the rain inside of the RV, thinking, why are we doing this? I will say winters, the key for wintering in an RV is to try to be somewhere where you're not in the RV all winter.
Yeah, 100%. I can relate. I lived in New York for quite some time. I went to school
Oh,
in Buffalo. So yes,
yeah.
I've experienced my fair share of harsh winters. So
Hmm.
right now, in Miami, and no complaints. No complaints. The humidity is a different ballgame though, but that's a different topic.
Yeah.
So Brett, now let's talk a little bit more about Foxy Card. Extremely interesting to many of our listeners because of what you guys do. Any businesses, e-commerce businesses, can literally use you guys. So first thing that came to mind when I saw you guys was, hmm, I wonder what the difference is between Stripe and Foxy Card. So I'm sure some of our listeners have the same question. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I think at this point in 2025, it's easy to sort of forget how we got where we are. So in e-commerce, in the payment space, there are distinct pieces that things like PayPal and Stripe have sort of just vertically consolidated. So There's the gateway, like authorize.net, which is not the processor, which is not necessarily the underwriting bank or the person who services the account. So Stripe's fantastic. Stripe will get you accepting credit cards, some alternate payment methods. Stripe doesn't necessarily do a full cart, a persistent cart on the page. They have their checkout. It's a cool product, doesn't work for everybody. Foxy and Stripe also just different industries. Stripe won't service higher risk, medium risk, certain types of products.
Mm.
Um, we integrate with Stripe and PayPal and Authorize.net and CyberSource and Payment Tech and whatever brand WorldPay is using. And all the big companies continue to change their brands, and it drives us a little bit nuts. People are like, oh, do you support Clover? And we're like, we support CardPoint, which is sort of the same thing, sort of not. That's a big mess. So Stripe's fantastic, but Stripe is just generally a piece of the puzzle. For instance, we have a lot of Webflow users. Webflow is a really impressive platform,
Hmm.
and they have built-in e-commerce, but their built-in e-commerce only has Stripe and PayPal and is very limited in a lot of ways, which is to be expected. Webflow, they are experts in visual website design, not in e-commerce. So
So, I'm going to interrupt you here quickly because I want to make sure that everybody can follow. So, for for example, let's take Webflow that you were just discussing. Webflow, great on designs, etc. Are you saying that because Stripe, for example, offers like a very specific template where you just like, you just have that page there and it's part of the website, versus you guys, you do a more customized experience for the customers for that platform. Is that correct?
it is, but it's also, let's say you're doing CBD, you can't
Mm-hmm.
generally use Stripe. Or let's say
Gotcha.
for whatever reason you want to use, and we partner with, I'm not sure I can actually say it. We partner with some
No
banks,
problem. Mm-hmm.
and you might go into your bank and open up your small business checking account, and you might want to do processing through your bank. You might want to do it through Intuit. You might have better rates in your specific industry with a more
Gotcha.
specific payment provider. You might have functionality. I mean, again, Stripe is really good, but
Mm-hmm.
Stripe is not the only option out
Gotcha.
there. Uh, so that's where you might want to use Stripe, but you also might need to use PayPal. You might want to use Amazon Pay. You might want to use Stripe for some products and not for others. You might want to use Stripe, but you might need to do something different with your taxes, uh, etc. So that's where
Gotcha.
if Stripe doesn't work, which it doesn't for a lot of people, there are a lot of other options. We support most of them. If Stripe does work, cool. We support Stripe as well. The advantage, for instance, we Foxy can be white labeled and embedded into other SaaSes. So we have a few LMSs, for instance, that
Mm-hmm.
their users want to sell their courses. So they built to Stripe and said, okay, we have a Stripe integration. And then an enterprise user comes along and says, okay, we have to use Payment Express or whichever
Mm-hmm.
gateway it is. Then if the platform and what has happened is they'll rebuild their e-commerce instead of on top of Stripe, on top of Foxy, they get Stripe, they also get 100 other payment platforms and
Gotcha. Gotcha.
integrations. So
And
it's
is
we have one consistent API. You can switch gateways with no real impact to your front end.
understood. And you had mentioned earlier also you have global employees. By the way, does Stripe work globally or no?
It does. I'm not in every country, but they do have
Gotcha.
pretty solid international support.
Okay. But you guys would be able to work with any country, correct?
Yeah. Although I
Okay.
will say we don't test in the right to left languages, so
Okay.
um, I
What
mean
does that mean, right to left languages?
Arabic, Hebrew,
Ah, okay,
those.
gotcha. Okay, now thank you for clarifying. Okay, makes sense. So now, obviously, when e-commerce businesses think of which platforms to use, they look at the cost associated with it as well. So, for example, I know that Stripe has a small percentage of the purchase price. How does Foxcard operate?
We have monthly. Uh, monthly costs as well as usage based. Unlike most other e-commerce platforms, we don't charge a percentage of the sale. We do
Hmm.
charge the different plans. I mean, there is some degree of usage-based pricing, which
Hmm.
we found necessary because when we first launched, it was $15 a month for everybody. And we realized
Gotcha.
pretty quickly we had a major outlet chain in the US, and every Black Friday, they would take us down. And we realized, oh, 98% of our entire platform traffic is coming from this one user. So all of our small users are subsidizing this one larger user. So we do.
Gotcha.
So there is a necessity for sort of usage-based billing just on our end, uh, but we don't charge an extra 2% or an extra 1%, which most platforms do. There's so much money in the processing. I mean, we'd be much more profitable, I think, if we did. Uh,
Hmm.
but we're not opinionated. You find the best processing, you find the best rates for you, cool. It doesn't matter on our end if you sell something for $10 or $100 or $1,000. An extra zero in the database is not what impacts our cost. Our cost is, impacted by the infrastructure and the people, really. I mean, payroll.
No, that's awesome. And what prompted you guys to go with that decision?
So again, we're small tech.
Hmm.
We try to approach the solution to the problem of needing custom e-commerce, needing flexible e-commerce. We try to approach the solution the way that we want the solution to be, which is how I started the company. My last
Hmm.
company, we did site builds for design firms that weren't really technical, and
Gotcha.
they need e-commerce. We ended up building what we wanted, what I wanted, and figured, if I want it, other people probably want it as well. You have a
Yeah,
CMS, you
yeah.
know how to build a site. Just because you want to add e-commerce doesn't mean you should have to abandon your site building platform of choice.
That's awesome. Okay. And so listen, 18 years again, it's a lot of experience. What would you say, like, in in these 18 years, what has been your biggest challenge, you would say, in this industry?
In the industry, I'd say there's the change over time, especially in the past handful of years, that change has accelerated. So 18 years ago, things were fairly static. The
Hmm.
compliance was fairly static. PCI was newer at the time. It gateways would say, okay, here's our thing. They're not updating versions constantly. I'd say the pace of development, the pace of
Gotcha.
change within the industry has become difficult. And that's because, I mean, in some part, that's because we integrate with 100 plus different things. So,
Yeah.
you know, oh, this is deprecated. I mean, PayPal alone is they've gotten better about it, but there's here's the new branding, here's the new platform. No, no, this is the new platform. No, this is the new platform. So we've sort of learned we can't be on the bleeding edge, or we just continue to waste our time. Um, that's the challenge. I think just also people. I
Of course.
running a business, running a remote business is we have an absolutely wonderful team. Everybody at Foxy is just wonderful. But it's tricky because we have different cultures, we have different expectations, we have different ways that we communicate. And
Hmm.
some people are not used to I'll just say respectful work environment.
Yeah, yeah.
There's people have trauma from shitty experiences and
Yeah, yeah.
abusive bosses. Um, I mean, that's a challenge, but it's also, I think, at the end of the day, we're all people. We're all trying to do the best we can. And like I said, we try to treat everybody the way that we want to be treated, and that includes even within the team.
Yeah, no, makes sense. So, I mean, listen, you mentioned the first challenge about things, the fast pace of the change these days. You mentioned PayPal. Oh, different art for like the logo or whatever it is. Like things are changing, and you guys, as as PayPal being a platform you use, you have to keep up. So obviously, one of the main topics that we hear about these days is AI, and AI is definitely could be the reason why things are changing so fast, because I feel like every day there's a new version of ChatGPT, and also like multiple other tools that many of us are not familiar with. So how has AI impacted your business and also the industry in your opinion?
Yeah, the business, I would say AI has not had a significant impact
Mm,
at this point. I'll say we've tried. I've, to a large degree, not wanted to miss out, right? You see all the
of
headlines and you
course.
think, okay, well, everyone's trying this thing. What can, I don't want to be on the tail edge of this. So I've encouraged my team to adopt tools. We've talked about different solutions. I ask in Slack fairly regularly, how's everyone doing? What are they using AI for? And I continue to try to use it myself. I've experimented with a little bit of like vibe coding. I experiment with the different models.
Hmm.
And on our end, we found AI to be useful. I think the biggest things that we're actually using it for are the more routine things that are maybe less brain intensive and
Gotcha.
easier to review output. For instance, writing tests or converting tests from one test platform to another. That tends to work. I found AI personally really helpful for like an AWS CloudWatch Logs Insights. They have a query builder. It's incredible when it works. It used to work really well. It sort of got worse. Now it's sort of working better.
Hmm.
Um, Using AI for like DynamoDB query language, like things that are highly specific but are not used or not something we don't use them enough, or I'm not in them enough to really know all the syntax and all the commands. AI is really helpful there. Um,
Gotcha.
Used it for Tried using it for other things. I have a friend who
Hmm.
uses it for marketing and has some really great prompts and personas that he's built, and he's had luck with that. I've found it to be exceptionally poor for anything that really requires factual information from the real world. I mean, I've had, and that includes sometimes programming. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure we've all had this experience if we've really tried using AI, where it tells you to do something, and you either know because it's your area of expertise, or you don't know, and then you have to go back and tell it
Yep.
what that doesn't exist. That's not a thing. That's not an option. That's not an API method. There
Hmm.
is no SDK called that there. So at that point, I think the shine starts to fade a little, and you realize
Gotcha.
I can't rely on this. And that's where, if it's language, if it's summarizing something, I think it does a fantastic job. If you have to actually have a real answer that you can rely on, I have not found AI to be helpful. Also, a lot of the ways like Gemini turns on deep research every time. There's so many different models. There's so much overhead, I feel like, to really get to the point where you know what you're doing. And I think a lot of the things that I try, I realize I couldn't rely on that anyway. Um,
Yeah.
so mixed feelings at this point. In the industry, I'll stop, but I can sort of zoom out because I have some
No, 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 no. I want
takes
to
on
hear
the
the
industry.
industry part. So pretty much a
So
quick recap here for your own business. It can help with some tasks, more the operational tasks, etc. But it's not something that you can rely on.
yeah.
So
I
correct?
mean,
Yeah.
what I
Okay.
want it to do is I want it to. Xero we use for accounting. It's spelled Xero if people aren't familiar. Nice platform. I'm not the
Okay.
hugest Intuit fan personally. It's been years though. I'm sure it's fine now. Don't like to say anything negative about
No, no
anybody.
worries at all.
Um, and now I got completely sidetracked.
So you were about to tell us how what you would want it to do
Oh
is
yeah, in Zero they have an AI bot. What I want the AI to do is look at all the charges that have come in and say, "Oh yeah, I know this one goes to that and this one goes to that," and
yeah.
do that. What AI doesn't do is that. What it also doesn't do is pretty much anything else in the context of bookkeeping that I would want it to do. So it's useless in the things
Hmm.
that I wanted to do. Like people say, we wanted AI to do our laundry so we could focus on our art, and instead we have AI that can do our art so we can focus on our laundry. And I'm a
Yeah,
musician.
yeah.
I feel like, yeah, that's weird. To
Oh,
to
nice.
to go beyond though my experience with it and to sort of zoom out to the e-commerce industry, it's really hard for me not to see AI as very much a bubble right now. Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, because we've supported, for instance, cryptocurrency since like 2013.
Hmm.
I could count on probably my fingers and toes the total number of crypto transactions that people have used platform wide over the last decade plus. Because if you have crypto, you hold the crypto. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to spend their crypto. So it's
Hmm.
not like it's cool. It's really interesting. There's some really neat advantages. Stable coins are really, really fascinating.
Hmm.
And I mean, stable coins could replace international wires and have on
Hmm.
our end for some of when we need to move money around or pay some of our team. But crypto writ large is a really interesting solution in search of a problem. That's my
Hmm.
perspective. And maybe we're
Yeah, yeah.
finally getting there for stablecoins. I sort of, I mean, I know people are talking about AI as a bubble, but having used it, having tried to use it, I definitely feel like okay, it's like Web3 and crypto and all these other things that PayPal and Stripe and Shopify and then these huge players, these big tech companies. There's so much money to be made in pushing these things that they do. And I mean, how many times have Stripe and PayPal tried to push crypto? A lot over the years. And how much do most people care about crypto? None. I mean, my co-founder is in the crypto space,
Okay.
and he's a true believer, and I mean he's trying to make the world a better place in that space. Cool, but practically for our users, crypto isn't really a solution for anything, and I see AI as I think it's still looking for the killer
Of
application.
course.
It's
Yeah,
neat.
yeah.
I don't discount that, and I know that some people are using it with really great effect, and I think maybe we'll get there. Like maybe we'll get to the point
Yeah,
where I can tell Google to turn off the fan, and it doesn't say, "I can't
yeah.
find your backyard lights," and right, like,
I think I think you're spot on. And first of all, thank you for that fresh perspective. I think a lot of people that I've had on this podcast, I would say most of them were very pro AI, but with some limitations. I remember one of our guests mentioned how, for her, it's all about work-life balance. We never really shut down, and AI is helping her get things done quickly and be able to, like, have more time to spend with her family, friends, kids, whatever, whoever it is. Um, but I think I like your perspective, and then this is where it's a good reminder that, believe it or not, AI is still in its very infancy stage. I think there's a lot more room for growth, and this is where things will get interesting. To your point, like what application, and even though yes, in some businesses they're already using it, but it will get to a point where just like the internet. Some businesses were using it when it first came out, but most were not. AI is the same thing right now. So it will be interesting to see how this evolves in the next 5, 10, 15 years, you know. But
Mhm.
glad to hear your take for your personal business, but also for your industry. And by the way, what you said you worked with, did you work with PayPal since the get-go of
Yeah.
the creation? Yeah. So was it still owned by Musk or no?
Oh, I mean, that would have been '06 is when we started building. I do not recall. I do rec
Okay.
no, yeah, he must have been involved because I do recall when, and again, I mentioned PayPal is um, they're getting better, and we've talked
Hmm.
to them about this, but PayPal goes through product names and products,
Yeah.
and I remember when they were like everything's X.com, and then we sort of realized, oh, it's a good thing we didn't jump on that because that's not a thing
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Well, listen, Brett,
Yeah, I
like
don't know how many
for
people realize that like Musk got X.com back from PayPal and PayPal initially was like, we're gonna do X.com, and I think all of us at the time were like, that's bad for a payment thing.
Yep,
X?
yep. You know, it's funny because I had read about this, so which is why like it wasn't a big aha moment for me now, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners will think this is pretty funny. Clearly, he has something with like, you know, the letters X, then he came out with all the Tesla models, you know, Y, X again, 3,
Yeah.
S, but no, this is it's pretty cool, man, that you've been around for so long that you know, you've seen a lot. So I think your wealth of experience, wealth of knowledge. So I think just to wrap things up, Brett, for our listeners who would be interested in finding out more about Foxy Card, we will obviously be including the link of your website to the description. But what is the best way to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, contact through the website is
Okay,
is generally best. We'll respond back very promptly. There's a phone number on there as well if you prefer. But
awesome.
yeah,
No, well, listen, Brett, I learned a lot from you. I'd never heard of Foxy Card before today, and I'm sure that a lot of listeners will benefit from it as well. Thank you for sharing your opinion on AI, on the future, and on your current industry. And I hope to have you back here on the channel in the near future.
yeah, I'd be happy to chat about, I think what we were maybe planning on chatting about, more privacy concerns. So I ranted a bit about
100%.
AI. I do want to make it clear. I use it. I continue to poke at it and to try to, figure out where it's appropriate. And there are cases where it's really great. And
No,
somewhere there
100%.
where it's not. So thanks so
No,
much for your time, Carl.
of course, thank you. And yes, we will have the follow discussions on privacy. But again, thank you, Brett, and looking forward to the next chat.
Have a good one.